how can a CDO get the rest of the organization to leverage a catalog? And by that, I mean not the technical folks, but really the business consumers and those analysts who are looking for information. How can the CDO, what can they do to make that an appetizing option?
I think it goes back to how do I help the person in that role speed up and simplify what they're trying to accomplish? And for us, taking something like, hey, I am over here in BigQuery or Snowflake, and I want to do this and this. But to do that, I need to go over to email. I need to kick off some request process. They kick me off to the security team. I have to like tell them what I'm doing and if it's okay. They then throw me to legal, and legal's like this. And then the privacy person wants to talk to me. And then the ethics and compliance person, I have to go do something over there. If I can integrate and orchestrate that process to streamline it for the user, to integrate it in terms of like the privacy person, the security person, the compliance person, the ethics person, they probably all want 80% of the same information, but because they all are siloed, I have to repeat the same answers. And I feel like I just want to put a gun to my head a little bit of like, what am I doing? Like, this is way too hard to get something new launched. And if I can streamline that, that's how I get the business on board of saying, this is why you want to use this catalog is you can, yes, of course, discover data. You can see who else is using things. That's bread and butter, of course. But actually helping speed up your use of data is what's going to get the business ultimately behind it.
So I have another question I'm going to catch you a little bit by surprise with, but I have to ask it. So the industry is really kind of moving toward this whole concept of data mesh or data fabric. And when you think about what that implies, it really implies this sort of wholly integrated, universally available, consumable, easy to access, short time to deploy environment of data for analytical and consumption purposes. How does OneTrust's solution fit into the data mesh frame? Or so where does it
inside fit? Of that? Yeah, inside of that data fabric, that data mesh and flow is a trust fabric that sort of, if I would say, sits underneath it or sits alongside it. And the trust is really giving you all the context and understanding of not trust from a quality, literal data perspective, but am I about to make a mistake where I'm going to end up in the front page of the Wall Street Journal by using this data for what I'm about to do? And if we can, what we create is that trust fabric that gives you guidance on, yes, you can use this, but you need to mask the month and date and just use the year. Yes, you can use this, but we're using differential privacy to randomly round up the numbers so you don't use the actual raw data, which could cause, re-identification if combined with something else. Yes, you can do this, but you need to disclose via a transparency notice. Otherwise, the European Data Protection Board is going to be on your butt and very upset about it. Or you're just going to, get frustrated customers because a cultural expectation in Brazil is that you can't just do these types of things. For example, like in Germany, for those of the audience listeners that are not familiar, to market or email anyone in Germany, you have to do a double opt-in to sign up. You can't just say fill out a form on a site and you're on my email list, I'm going to email you. You have to get a confirmed double opt-in confirmation before you can actually do this. So culturally, like a German citizen would be offended if you did not do that. So those types of nuances of, as a data scientist, yes, all the things about models and use, and you've created the business value, giving you that trust fabric in a very integrated way, the same way you think about how does that data fabric get integrated in a very usable way, is where we fit into that.
Well, I've got one more question and then we'll wrap up the interview. I really don't want to let you off the hook because this has been a fascinating conversation. I've enjoyed speaking with you today, and I think we're driving a lot of value for the folks that listen. Trust is in the name. OneTrust is the company name. So you guys have built a solution around this idea of trust, which is both a concept and a necessity for all of the stakeholders in the economic supply chain. right? It's really how the world works. When you speak about trusted data, and we've talked a lot about trusted data in this interview,
Mm-hmm.
how would you define trusted data? And remember, trust is in the name. So I want a really good, compelling answer to this question.
Yeah, so I 100% would not limit this to anything to do with data quality, trust, or anything like that. Trust to us is about that North Star of how do we help all companies of all sizes be more trusted. And when you think about every company is a data company, every company is digital, every company has data. You have to think about all the stakeholders that make up that trust. You need to be trustworthy to your employees. You need to be, because you need people to work for you and be confident in wanting to pursue what you are on a mission to do as an organization. You need to be trustworthy to your customers that are probably giving you that data and why they should continue to give you that information, and allow you to use it for the things you're using it for. You have to be trustworthy to your partners. You probably are a vendor to many companies, and your trustworthiness of your compliance, your certifications, your your stance on government subpoenas and all these things and how you disclose that. All of that is key towards that ability to use that data and be trustworthy. And then the fourth bucket I would say is you have to be trusted by your investors. And this is where specific to trends like ESG that are becoming much more top of mind for many organizations, and JP Morgan and even the commissioner of the SEC pushing out sort of, we're expecting all companies that are public traded companies in the SEC standpoint to disclose their carbon, consumption and footprint. And all of those tie up into trustworthiness.
Yeah.
So your trust of data, your data is fueling your company, but to be trustworthy, you've got to consider all four of those categories.
I'm going to tell you how synergistic this interview was. I was just going to ask you about ESG. As a matter of fact, we just in the roundtable forum, in the Cincinnati CDO roundtable forum, had a presenter yesterday at lunchtime speak about what just came out of your mouth in terms of ESG and what the community around the publicly traded companies is now looking for. And that data has to be trusted. We talked a lot about trust. Well, this has been a fascinating interview. Blake, thank you so much for spending time with us today. And like I said, I'm going to really make sure that at the publication we push this, maybe even put a preface on the front of the interview when people click on it to say, if you're a C-suite executive, please spend 25 minutes or 30 minutes and watch this to the end in its entirety. It's an education. It's like
That's
having
great.
an Audible subscription and reading a new bestseller. So with that in mind, I'll just let you close us out with a few words of wisdom, or pontificate about the future in 1 minute.
1 minute. So I guess my guidance or just thoughts is this is something that is here to stay. There are going to be more data protection laws, regulations that will govern your use of data. Your understanding of that will be mission critical for you to use any data. And the good news is there's going to be a significant advancement in privacy enhancing technologies and various things like that to help you do those things in a ongoing, automated, and intelligent way as a business. So for me, it's a super exciting space that OneTrust and many other of our peers in the industry are kind of committed on the journey for. And it's never too late to start if you haven't started building some plans for governance.
Well, thank you, Blake. Everyone, thank you again so much for checking out this interview today. Again, my name is Mark Johnson. I've had the pleasure, really the honor of sitting through this conversation with Blake Brannon, who's the Chief Strategy Officer of OneTrust. If you haven't checked out OneTrust in terms of your journey, I would really suggest that you go to your CDO and say, hey, what are we doing about trust in an integrated and accelerated way? And have we thought about OneTrust? All right, well, that's it for me today. There are other great interviews posted on the CDO Magazine site. We're excited to have you interested in learning more about these topics. Data is really the value driver for the enterprise, but not stuck in a vault. So with that, I'm going to wrap up. Thanks, everyone. Have a great afternoon.